Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my show Rocket Monday. In today's episode we're gonna take a look at space tourism, the newly emerging market. So let's dive right into it. Now first and foremost you have to understand the idea. Now all of you are familiar with the fact that space is expensive, so where this money is gonna come from. To give you a context of this, tourism is a very big business. Now to estimate, in 2016 global tourism business have created upwards of $7.6 trillion. To give you a context of that, basically that's higher than many nations GDPs, and USA has roughly 13 trillion in terms of gross domestic product, or 14 trillion, and NASA's budget in that same time was only $18.5 billion. To give you idea, to give you a simple context of it, there is a lot of money in it. Even if you can capture a small portion of that, even like a very small 1% of it, it's still more than sufficient. So we got that. Now when you're selling it as an experience, like of course you're gonna be like, okay, it's a tourism, somebody has to sell it, some agency has to sell it. What they're gonna sell? Film. This is truly, practically speaking, out of this world experience. Like there is no comparison amongst it. Like you can say, okay, like Swiss Alps, but again, if you went to Swiss Alps, will you enjoy Mount Everest as much? No, because both more or less are same thing. Now of course, like every mountain range on earth looks more or less the same, simply because they are on earth. When you go above earth, things change. Like it literally is out of this world experience. There is no experience that even comes close to describing it. And the most fun part, it has zero G experience. People pay a lot of money to experience zero G, even for a small time. Many of you are familiar with the plane known as Vomit Comet or zero G craft. Basically it goes parabola and then free falls for a while, so you can have zero G experience for 30 seconds. So sometimes they will do multiple parabolas, so during one flight time you can get upwards of 10 minutes of zero G experience. So it is a big enough market that people will pay. There is a lot of money, and even if small portion of them paid, it's more than enough. So this is the idea of it. Now let's first look at government. Like there are so many space agencies like ESA, Roscosmonaut, ISRO, JAXA, NASA and all that. So but be mindful, it's not a preferred option for any space agency, simply because that means they have to divert their resources. So if a space company, let's say ISRO, India Space Company, is like, okay, should we divert our money to make sure it's safe for tourism, or should we launch another satellite that will help us assure in better internet connectivity around the rural area, or have better weather satellite system. So of course you can understand, from a government point of view, tourism really does not justify the cost. And all the times that they have done that, like be it NASA, be it Roscosmonaut, where they have taken actual tourists to space, it does provide a small income. Now what I mean by small income is like it's very little. Like practically speaking, how much money they will spend versus how much money they will get out of the ticket is very small. Like of course it's not a loss for them, but it's not that much. So let's say they are getting 20 million from a billionaire, their ticket price would be roughly 18 million. So it's not a $20 million profit. It would be like 2 million profit. So it's not a very big profit. However, that's the sole reason Roscosmonaut takes many civilian passengers. But it's not a priority, like flat out, because to make sure your funding is not cut, you have to send people up there that can die and without collapsing your economy. Basically, if a civilian dies, it's a completely different thing. If a soldier dies, if an astronaut dies, that's a completely different thing. Like you expect them to know the risk, you expect them to take that risk. But if civilian dies, like you and I, that's a completely different news cycle. You don't want that. So that's why it's not priority. However, right now, if you are a citizen with boatload of money, this is the only option. It has been done in past, but it's kind of very tricky to get. So that's the government aspect of it. It's not a priority for them, nor it should be. So then we come to the private players, which has been rustling up all this crowd. So first and foremost is Virgin Galactic. This is the first started one, and this is kind of old at this point, but basically Virgin Galactic also suffers from the same fact. They were selling ticket very early on, as in upwards of 2010, and the plane supposed to start going in 2012. Suffice to say, it hasn't done that, and I'm not even sure they're gonna pull it off before 2020. And this is not a orbital craft. Basically, they take a plane, take a smaller plane from that, or smaller rocket at this point, and then go to a parabolic orbit. Basically, the orbit is not orbital, it's not circular, it's just a ballistic trajectory. They will go up, stay there for a few minutes, and then fall back. It's not orbit. They will not go around the planet. This is suborbital system. But this started this whole idea, like, you know, booking tickets and paying. A lot of people paid money, good money, for this, but it has suffered one casualty at this point in time. So this is not like, you know, as rosy as basically Richard Branson wanted to it out to be. It has taken life, and not to mention is behind schedule on a level that you can't even comprehend. Then we come to SpaceX. Now SpaceX is a privately owned company, so that's awesome. They are free from stock market, that's very good. However, they still run on money. So this billionaire comes along, and be mindful, you can check my whole video on SpaceX, like BFR versus SLS, and the whole idea is that Elon Musk want to build BFR. Now BFR will only get funding once it's already built. Like NASA will pay for BFR once it's built, or enough of it has been built that NASA has confidence. Like that's why basically Falcon 1 was built, then Falcon 5 was planned. Once government saw, okay, Falcon 1 can be built and tested by, and, you know, deliver payload, then they got funding for Falcon 9. Same will happen with BFR. To get that funding, this gentleman comes along, and he is the first paid tourist that will go to space and orbit the moon. That is the crucial aspect. There has been many paid tourists in space, but none of them have ventured outside the LEO, basically low Earth orbit. He will be the first one to do that, and he have put down some very good amount of money for that to help them along. So that's the second one. And then we have third one, Blue Origin, basically passion project of Jeff Bezos. At this point, I think he's the richest man alive, and he's slowly working on, and this is his rocket, which is also suborbital, so that means it's not gonna do orbit. So all things considered, you might think, okay, SpaceX the only one that can classify as, you know, properly in space. That's true, and another way to look at it is there is something known as Kármán line, that is legally specified line. If you cross that line, you will get basically you will be classified as astronaut, as in somebody who ventured in space, not by training or something. It's just that to cross that threshold, to cross that height, you will be classified as astronaut. That height is generally kept at 100 kilometers. So generally there are some private companies that are trying to lower that, because there have been some attempts that satellites successfully orbited at that low altitude. So they are saying, you know, lower it a bit, and that way anybody who's selling this suborbital, they can classify as that, you know, you are going to into basically space. So there is a bit of politics here. So be mindful. They have been going on for quite a while. SpaceX is, you know, it's in their vested interest that this BFR gets built. So for that reason, you can put your money on that. Virgin Galactic, I'm not sure. They have been delayed behind schedule for a very long time, and he had also the same issue of Elon Musk, like, you know, overselling. Like in 2012, we're gonna have it. And Blue Origin, that's very calmly, quietly working in the background. They don't make a giant announcement and things of that nature. They are just working at it, and they are gaining contract and traction in ULA and NASA, so they can slowly you know, come up in our future. So these are the big private players. Now these don't interest many of you, but many of you are interested in the small players. Like, you know, if you go into space tourism, every YouTube video is like, you know, space tourism next around the corner, this company wants to do that, like this company, that company, Bigelow Aerospace, and there are a lot of companies that want to start it out, and they are very starry-eyed dreamer. The reason why I don't like them is most of them are running on hope. Like if you ask them, like, okay, how you gonna send it, they're gonna like, okay, I'm gonna use Falcon 9. Okay, awesome, cool. Where you gonna build your you know, habitat, like basically this unit? No idea. Like, you should figure out how you're gonna build this first before you figure out how you're gonna launch it. Like, of course, lowering the launch vehicle gives you a very good dimension accuracy, but you have to build it. So this company, Bigelow Aerospace, they have better grasp on things, simply because they actually are a partner for NASA, and they have provided habitats in the past. Inflatable habitat is their specialty, so they do have that idea. But again, they are also overselling it. Like all of them, like this design, I have provided links below, you can check it out for yourself, but all of them are running on like basically, oh, we're gonna start this, we're gonna do this, and in 2020 we'll have it. Like, That's 2 years from now. That's most of them, the oldest of them I'm seeing is 5 years ago they are that good now. It takes decades to build a proper space infrastructure. International Space Station was not built on one day. So be mindful. It takes time, it takes preparation, it takes a ginormous time. Remove the money. Let's say you are rich enough. Let's say you are rich enough that you can afford your own rocket, that you can afford your own basically company of brilliant people. You still need to spend time. That's why I don't like any of them. It's simply all of them are oh, 5 years from now I'm gonna do this. Okay, do you have a plan in the motion? Do you have a factory right now where you are building it? Do you have a giant vacuum chamber where you're going to test it out? No, none of those things, but we're going to do in 5 years. That's not how that works. Please, for crying out loud. It's all the deeper I look into them, I'm really, this is how you're going to do it? So suffice to say, these small players do not inspire a lot of confidence in me. Of course I would love to be proven wrong in this, but let's see. Then we come to the, is it really gonna happen, the future of it. Now if humanity really want to make space accessible to you and I, basically the common folk, it has to go bigger. Now the biggest idea out there is Gateway Foundation. That is this architecture. The idea is this is a spinning habitat, and in the center you will have basically zero gravity. So basically that if you want to experience space, you will be in this area, and if you want to experience moon gravity, this core will have moon gravity. So if you want to go to moon, you can train here. And now if you want to go to Mars, this outer ring will have gravity equivalent of Mars. So this way NASA can lease out, let's say, this area, and let's say whoever is trying to do moon mining, they can train their astronaut, or whoever is doing that, train their worker here, and whoever wants to go for just normal fun zero-G experience, they can do this. So this approach has one core advantage. It's if they start building it like a small section, everybody will start pouring in money because it's in their best interest. So bigger is better, and this way they can build a very ginormous station. The target audience for this is upwards of 10 to 20,000 people in orbit all the time, 24/7. So that's a completely different ball game. And not to mention, because it has centrifuge capacity, as in it is rotating, it has gravity, people should be able to survive there for longer. And because they have Mars gravity and moon gravity and zero gravity, there are multiple things that can be done for it. Say you want to shoot a sci-fi movie, the hardest thing to do is shoot a zero-G scene. You see, shoot it here. Scientists will be busy in their moon orbit, you can have theme park rides in the Mars orbit. So the bigger you make it, the more things can be done in one place, and the easier it becomes to fund. For that reason, I am very hopeful with this idea. However, this is still a concept, so please relax. It's not like you're gonna say starting tomorrow. So this is the craft that they are aiming for. That craft is the size of space shuttle. So understand that this is humongous, and this should give you a scale idea how big that is. This is International Space Station, that is Gateway Foundation. So this is a good idea because this actually helps the funding along. It's every small country can chip in a little bit and over time this could become big enough, and all those small startups that have no no proper launch capacity, they can also just chip in their money and okay, we're gonna own a small sector, let's say you take our money and you give us let's say one corridor. Cool, awesome. So this way things can be done. But if somebody says multiple companies are making their multiple small resorts, all of them gonna starve to death, simply because if that many people are providing basically services, they have to keep their costs down. If they keep their costs down, how the heck they gonna recover their original investment? But if you make them big, a lot of people can go, the throughput will be higher, meaning the ticket prices will be lower, which means more people will go, which means more money, which means more profit. So this idea of small companies, I really don't think that's feasible. Can SpaceX do it? Again, no. SpaceX will only take people they want to make BFR as a rocket simply because it's reusable, and they're gonna be okay, first launch is NASA, second launch is a private mission, whoever pays for it. But they themselves is not gonna do it. So all the other companies, they have to come together. So we have to go the conglomerate route, basically where multiple small companies come together and do something awesome as this. Outside of this, let's say if companies don't come along and many small countries chip in, this sort of dream will be, well, just dream. So at the future, I'm talking 2030s to 2050s, we will have space tourism because we already had it in past. It's just that to have the tourism at a level where people oh, I'm going to Europe, and somebody will be nah, I am saving money so I can go to space, that's gonna take a while. So this was my presentation on space tourism. I hope you liked it or learned from it. In that case, please leave a like. If you didn't, don't worry about it. You can dislike it. I would urge you to leave a comment on the episode and what you want to see in the next episode. Please subscribe, share it amongst your friends, #S2T, and I would ask you to press the bell icon if you're free. And as always, thanks for watching.